You're listening to Expertly Said, a podcast on the art and impact of communication. I'm Kristen Sweeney, founder and CEO of Every Little Word. My guest today is Chris Dennen, CMO at Branch. Chris is a hands-on marketing leader known for being the bridge from strategy to execution, helping organizations level up their brand and deliver measurable results. His expertise is centered on designing comprehensive marketing strategies, building effective teams of awesome humans, and developing the kind of story-driven content that truly resonates. He's applied this approach across a broad range of companies from startups to global players. When he's not focused on growth, Chris is a serious outdoor enthusiast, always willing to talk about skiing, mountain biking, or kite surfing, and of course, marketing. Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Likewise. I haven't been skiing in 20 years and I've never mountain biked or kite surfed, so I'm afraid we're going to have to talk about marketing today.
Oh, it's a bummer because it's October 27th and I literally went skiing yesterday because it snowed a foot in
Wow.
Oregon. So it was a really exciting day.
Oh
And
my
it's the
gosh.
earliest I've ever gotten to go skiing. So very
That's
excited.
fantastic. So you've got like, what, 6 months ahead of you for the
Oh yeah,
season?
the season here is really long. So it actually goes until Memorial Day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, really excited to have you on the show. I would love to start by just learning a little bit more about kind of your journey and your background. So, what has led you to your current role at Branch? Where'd you get your interest in marketing and story and communication?
Yeah, so after graduate school, I ended up in some sales and marketing roles at Schneider Electric, which is a really great introduction to my career because it's just a really well-run company. I learned so much from so many great individuals there. I started out in one of their entry-level sales programs, decided that that wasn't quite for me, moved over to marketing. I felt like it was a little bit more where I could kind of play and mold in the strategy of like how to reach customers, how to reach potential clients, things like that. And I really enjoyed that. So I started to really focus on the digital side of marketing at the beginning of my career, moving into a little bit more marketing leadership as I moved from one company to another, kind of leading digital first and then leading all of marketing departments and really getting a feel for cross marketing, what needs to be done in order to influence potential customers. So
Nice.
that's what got me excited about it. Yeah.
So tell me, what is it about marketing, maybe versus sales? Although I know you work hand in hand with sales, very valuable colleagues, right, in any organization. What is it about marketing that's kind of the better fit for you or that appeals to you?
Yeah, so you're right. The sales colleagues are so important, and the strategy does blend very easily between the marketing and sales stuff. But I felt like the marketing really allows you to strategically develop the air cover for a company and push out that brand and what makes companies great. I found that it was the space where you could get creative and you could figure out, what is it? What's that nugget of awesome that's inside of a company? And then how do we push that out into the world? And I felt like the strategy of doing that and operationalizing it into smaller projects was just really fun. And it's really interesting work.
Yeah, awesome. And so tell us a little bit about Branch and the kind of the group you've got today and the work that you're doing there.
Yeah, so Branch is a strategic marketing consultancy. We specialize in helping brands do kind of what I was just saying. We're taking that nugget of awesome and sharing that thing out with the world and figuring out where companies are at with their marketing and how to get them to a point where they can start to build and measure really great marketing operations. So there's everyone's kind of at a different spot with where their marketing is. Some people are just starting companies. We've worked with startups all the way up to very established companies that have been around for 20 plus years. But everyone is in kind of a different spot with where their marketing is. It's really interesting because in a lot of cases, companies tend to grow and they focus on the things that they're good at, their manufacturing, their delivery of services, their supply chains, their sales strategies. And sometimes marketing can fall behind a little bit and it doesn't get focused on, and it can honestly become a place where some things that aren't quite marketing get shoved, some administrative style stuff. So
Hmm.
what we specialize in is kind of coming in and figuring out who a company is, what they do, what makes them great, and then developing a marketing organization that is designed specifically to let your target personas know why you're so awesome.
Yeah, I sometimes refer to what you mentioned as like marketing as somebody's third job in the company. And,
Yeah.
the good thing about that, I guess, is that often those organizations have found other ways to grow until they don't, right? And so
Yeah.
it is great in some ways because you know that you can lean on operational expertise and excellence in that case. And you're not going to be marketing something that can't kind of stand up to the test of actually running customers through the process or delivering the service. And on the sales side, there's a functioning, there's a business development function. Some companies lack that and focus only on marketing. But it does become, what I've seen is companies can grow up to a certain point that way, and then they kind of hit a ceiling. And if they want to keep going beyond that, they are going to have to think about brand and messaging. And I love what you said about actually getting things into the world. I probably say it on 2/3 of these shows. Our mission is to share great ideas with the world, and like I would never have that as a mission statement if the share with the world part wasn't in there, because the execution piece of it is just so important to me. And so that's something I know we share a passion for. So tell me a little bit about, you talked about companies being in different places, right? And every company's makeup is unique, and their path to growth or to get to their current state is different. How do you think about when you're coming into an organization? Like, are you mapping against a specific rubric of what are the things that are in place? Are you really letting where the company's at kind of guide you? Are you looking for key kind of foundations? How do you think about, walking into marketing for, like you said, more of an existing organization that's already had some success and growth up to this point?
Yeah, so my team likes to figure out, what is the core competency that a customer is delivering, and how are they doing that differently from any of their competitors, or what is that key nugget that makes them really great? And that's where we start. And then we say, okay, well, what have you built around that nugget, right? Have you figured out your visual brand identity? So I'll actually kind of run you through the checklist that we look for to see if a company has these things in place. And if they don't, it's a great chance to say, let's slow down and maybe install some of these things. So some of the things are the brand identity, and does that match the mission of the company visually, right? Does it evoke the idea of the mission that the company's trying to put forward, right? Next up is the tone of voice, and that's where every little word and companies like you guys
Yeah.
really come in and help shine. Where establishing a tone of voice is really important, and then sharing that across the entire organization to say, this is the way we speak. This is the way we want to be heard. This is the tone of voice that resonates with our potential customers, and we want to be intentional about that. So, I know that we have worked together, and we brought some of that to some clients, and I really like the way that you guys approach that too. Next up that we're looking for is the product and service description documentation. This one seems like a no-brainer, but it's kind of crazy how many companies internally have an understanding about what they make, deliver, give out to their customers, but they really haven't written it down in a way that makes sense to their ideal customer personas and documented that and shared it within the organization, right? So that's a huge one when it comes to getting everyone wearing the same jersey around what you actually put out there into the world.
Yeah, I think it's really, sorry, not to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
that piece is interesting. And I can confess to some challenges of my own in that regard, right? We're a boutique agency, and we do a lot of custom proposal work, but we recognize that as also a place of inefficiency in our company. And like, it's a lot of work to figure out, what do we sell? What should we not sell? What Honestly, as the salesperson and owner of the company, it's as much for me as like guardrails, like my team being like, you can't sell that for that much money. Like, you have to, these things have to go together, or it's got to be this, or this is what a minimum engagement looks like, or this is how we bundle, this kind of offer together.
And it's hard to do
But
that alone.
It
having an external
is.
set of eyes on that stuff is really nice because A, nobody wants to do this work. It's
Yeah.
a little bit drudgery. We all know it.
Yes.
Nobody wants to do it. But then B, having that external push to not only get it done, but to add some ideas around, well, I don't eat, sleep, and breathe your company, and neither do your customers. So maybe
Neither do your
having that external
customers.
feel might be a really great thing, whether it's for strategy or it's for copywriting or whatever it might be.
Yeah, because sometimes I think like internal, when you know something so well, and we see this with all sorts of subject matter experts we talk to, you see so many nuances that it's hard for you to kind of identify patterns or like group things together. But what your
Hmm.
audience might need is, yes, these three things are slightly differentiated, but really we need to combine them because it's too overwhelming otherwise. It makes for a simpler delivery of a message or what an offering is or something like that. And
Yeah.
on the inside, it's really hard because you're just so focused on the tiny, teeny tiny ways that those things differ.
Yeah. And I feel like when you have the external push, you end up getting what we like to call like the heck yeah moments that we're always going for with customers, where like you write some copy and it sounds so on point and you just know it's going to work, right? Or it like dovetails super nicely in a campaign that you're all working on and it was just missing that final spark. And I think that
Hmm.
having that external set of eyes or external brain power is really helpful there.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a question about something else you said, and this is a little bit of a sensitive question, I think. So you talked about the nugget of awesome, right? And kind of value
Yeah.
proposition. I have found that some companies have a stronger value prop than others.
Hmm.
And that's sometimes a challenge, right? Of trying to highlight differentiators where those differentiators might not honestly be super strong within the organization. They may not be very well developed. I think at this point, most companies kind of recognize the need for a value prop and have probably done some thinking about it. But
Yeah.
I'm curious what you do when that nugget isn't as strong as it could be. And is there a way, have you ever seen that kind of go back and impact how an organization is doing business or how they think about themselves and kind of shift things more broadly than in marketing?
Yeah, I have seen that a couple times, and I've seen people move towards or center around how they might deliver a product if what they deliver isn't particularly groundbreaking or different from what their
Yeah.
competitors are doing. One example of this is one customer that we worked with. They really leaned into the interpersonal relationships of delivering the service that they deliver. They leaned into the fact that they're going to be easier to work with and nicer to work with than
Hmm.
anybody else is out there, and they're really going to understand what their customers need because it's not a highly differentiated service.
Yeah.
They knew that they needed to pivot over into providing the best human to human interaction that could be found out there when solving this problem, especially since the the problems that they solve can be really tricky and can take a long time to kind of come to a solution on. It's good to have somebody that you trust and that you get along with on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis if they're going to be there for a little while. So that was one of the things that we leaned into a little bit more. So I think zooming out and getting a little bit creative around, how you can serve these things is really interesting. And sometimes it takes going through the marketing work to feed that back into the organization, right? You may have thought that we were just talking about, how to market the product, but it could actually change how you deliver the product too.
Right. Yeah. So I would say in the early days, for me, I would end up in these situations where I discovered that we were using a piece of content to figure out what the organization's point of view was about something. And at the end of the day, it's not the most productive way to do things. Resulted in a lot of what I call comment wars in our
Hmm.
Google Docs, right? But it wasn't extremely efficient from the perspective of a content workflow, which matters a lot to me. But at the same time, it did surface kind of important gaps in the organization where there was misalignment. So nowadays, we try and get ahead of that up front with messaging exercises and different kinds of stakeholder alignment. But
Hmm.
I've definitely experienced that as well. And yeah, it can be important to as you said, even with the value prop, I think sometimes it can trigger something that says, even if that's not where we are today, we need to think about a little more aspirational. What direction do we want to move in to be able to kind of back up this claim of being more differentiated in some way, whether it's the product, the service, or, as you said, kind of how we do it.
And especially when it's a service organization, right? Products are a little more cut and dry, easy to understand, but for a service organization, really understanding that and diving in and then documenting. I know we talked about it earlier, but documenting those services or products that you have in a really key way, and then coming back to them at intervals. Because like you said, sometimes things change, and you might want to say, maybe that's not exactly what we deliver anymore or what we're good at. We've gotten better at this
Yeah.
other thing. So,
Yeah.
coming back to them and saying, is this really what we're good at again? And that's a good practice for any organization to say, every couple of years, have we mutated or molded in some way that's different?
Right. And aligning that with, other parts of the organization, like looking financially, where's our revenue coming from, which engagements are more profitable, and then using that to kind of inform what you want to be actually pushing out in the market.
Yeah. And also, I mean, back to the checklist, but the next thing is documenting the personas, right? And are these services or products still resonating with these personas? Like going back and looking at those at intervals. Again, it's a little bit, in the weeds, but I think it's really helpful when you're talking about, who you're actually going to be selling to, and then matrixing those off of each other. So for the services that you have or the products that you have you mapped those in a matrix that allows you to see where those personas fit for those products, and then
Yeah.
building your campaigns off of that to really say, okay, we know these products are going to be really valuable for these personas. We have these great descriptions on what we're going to say about them for each of these personas, and that's the bedrock for our campaign creation, right? I feel like that's a rock solid way to start
Yeah.
to figure those things out.
So let's dig into personas a little bit more because I would say, again, for myself, I'm in multiple communities of other entrepreneurs, worked with loads of clients. Of all of the kind of foundational marketing activities, I think this is the one people have the hardest time with. And I think it's because it's making the choices here is limiting. And it's so scary to be limiting and not to say we could help everyone, we could serve everyone. Because as soon as you start to define who you help, automatically there's a whole bunch of people you're saying we are not helping, or we're at least not focused on helping those folks. So is that something you find, and how do you kind of navigate that challenge?
Yeah, I think it's important just to get started and just to start
Yes.
getting some on paper and say, hey, we know that our messaging has resonated with these types of customers because we've gotten a few of these types of customers, right? If you're just starting out, or if you've been selling for a while, go into your sales data or your delivery data, right? That can really help get you started and get you thinking. I'm always a firm believer, and once you've gotten the first, 10 minutes, first hour of a project done, the next hours are easier, right? So just getting started on things and saying, okay, our goal is to have 5 different personas, right? And I think you probably know what your first 2 or 3 are. And then you can get creative with the next set of them. And maybe some of them are a little bit more aspirational. Maybe you haven't sold into any of those groups before, but you're really interested and you think there's a good product market fit for that. And then start brainstorming what you know about it, right? Go out to people that are in the space. Ask AI, like, I don't know. There's
Yeah.
tons of different ways to start to model out different personas that could really be game changers for the business. But I think just getting started and having a format that you like for it and sticking with it. I think that's like a process procedural thing, but I think it's really important where like all of them need to come out looking more or less the same and have the same attributes and the same topics that you're talking about for each of them. So just spending the time to find a template for personas that you like and kind of vibes with your company really well, I think can be really helpful, and it can jog your processes. We use a few at Branch that we've really liked for ourselves and for customers. And to be honest, it's always hardest to do it for your own company for the
Yeah.
reasons that you're saying. And sometimes it's almost like you need an adult in the room just to say, let's just go and let's just commit to a few of these.
Yeah.
And we've been that sometimes, and it's kind of fun just to be like, hey, we're just going to go for a couple of these and we're just going to let it rip.
Yeah, it's I like what you said about the format. I think that's something because none of us want to be perceived as the consultant who kind of dumps something and then it's not used anymore, right? Like I think and
Yeah.
I think every consultant actually probably feels that way, that they hope and intend their information to be used. But finding the right format, we had a client recently, and it was really satisfying because we worked on messaging with them, built out did an extensive messaging project, and then we were offering just a little bit of support as they transitioned into a website build, and we were
Mm.
able to kind of map out some of their pages and link right back and say like, look, this is coming from this value proposition, this is coming from this section. All you really have to do is kind of put these pieces together, but just the ability to really demonstrate the thing that we say, which is you can and should use this all the time. Every time you think about a campaign, some kind of message, start here, start with your foundation. But to be able to actually show them the direct link was really, really satisfying.
I love that. And that cohesion just screams professionality as well, right? So you're not seeing a lot of disparate types of tone of voices or
Right.
text or descriptions or whatever it might be across a website and across all the content they're putting out. Like that one jersey means it's professional, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm such a stickler for consistency. I mean, internally and even externally, we use one font, one set of formatting with our clients, one highlight color that is for our clients to pay attention to, like really, because I feel inherently that that builds trust, and it's also fewer kind of micro decisions that someone needs to make of looking for like, is this pertinent to me, or kind of, oh, what am I processing now? You just eliminate that friction, so that they can actually focus on what it is they need to do, which is, provide feedback, review content, approve it, and not kind of get distracted by inconsistencies.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you feel like there's times where you've suggested like certain types of changes that people haven't been particularly down with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for sure, I think it's always a little bit of an experimentation once you're getting involved with a client to understand how they give feedback, how maybe, I don't want to say sophisticated, but how experienced they are at kind of giving specific types of feedback. And so sometimes there's a little more hand holding needed to say, this is how you can really help us. This is good to know, but we don't yet have what we need to really like action this.
Hmm.
And yeah, if it starts to be more than like two exchanges, then we're getting on a call and like let's hammer this out, because again, no comment wars. That's the goal.
I agree with that so much, and sometimes just like getting it out of the email zone and getting it into a conversation where you can actually look at somebody and say, "Hey, this is why we are suggesting this."
Hmm.
It comes up for us with where we're suggesting some potentially large strategy changes to people's departments, right? So when you
Yeah.
bring a strategy firm in, you're going to be talking to them about big stuff around, how to structure departments, how to make changes that make efficiencies. And, at the end of the day, these are people's lives, their jobs, and where they go every day. So we have to be really careful with that. But, there's always a reason behind it on why we're suggesting some of these things. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting, fun thing. Yeah,
Explaining the
when you're
why.
yeah, 100%.
So I want to kind of follow up on that, because you talked about, right, the product and service matrix, the personas to folks who are in delivery at an organization, right? That is their job, the people they work with and the things they are doing, the work of the business. So by nature, there's a very kind of cross-functional, you're in marketing strategy. So talk to me a little bit about engaging multiple stakeholders, how you kind of can navigate, again, from being from the outside, it's got a lot of value, but sometimes it comes with, okay, now we're in the politics of an organization, we are this outsider. How do you navigate that, getting kind of the buy-in you need across the organization so you can build a consistent brand, consistent tone of voice, kind of across all channels?
Yeah, so the highest goal of what we try to do is build alignment between leadership, marketing, sales, whether it's engineering or delivery, whoever's in that kind of like get it out to the customer space. But the highest goal is to build that alignment across all those groups, because that's where the foundation starts, right? If everyone's aligned on the same goals and they're trying to push out the same things, we're trying to build revenue to X% next year. We need marketing's help to do that. We need the air cover from marketing to get the brand out there, to get awareness, get impressions, all of that. But we also can't break internal processes just going all out on marketing, right? So we have to be able to, bring leads to our sales folks and have really great relationships there. We have to understand what the engineering department of the company is doing and what new products and services they're going to be bringing out and rolling out, and how we talk about those, right? Anytime you have a new rollout, you need to make sure that the engineering message is pushed through the marketing lens and then out to the potential customers, right? And then leadership's all across the top of that. And they obviously want to see kind of what they're buying for investing in marketing too. So that's that feedback loop around creating systems that allow them to see how the marketing team is doing. Like, how are you meeting your KPIs, and are those actually rolling up to increases in revenue? So I think you and I have talked about it a lot before, but it's marketing too. It's the
Yes.
brand of marketing inside of the company.
That was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, honestly, because I mean, I'm a stubborn person, and I think there was quite a while where I was like, this is a waste of my time, because I want to be doing the work. I want to be focusing on the work, not the work of showing the work, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like double time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can honestly say it's been a big sort of maturing lesson for me of saying, like, this is part of it. There's no getting around it. If you want to be effective, if you want to make an impact, you've got to focus on these pieces of alignment and buy-in and really getting people on board, and not just saying, well, they should like it because we're working so hard and doing all these things, and leave us alone so we can do our work. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been guilty of that a time or two. Yeah.
And especially as you build out teams, I feel like there needs to be a certain percentage of a marketing team or a marketing department that are just really good evangelists and bridge builders across other parts of the organization, right? Initially, it should be the marketing leader who's sitting and representing marketing on a day-to-day basis, but hiring people in that are just really great integrators with other parts of the business, and they're really curious about wanting to know what's going on in the engineering department. They're making friends over there. They have great friends in the sales department too. So those types of individuals are the glue that keeps marketing valuable in organizations. So looking for those types of people when hiring is something that I've tried to do, because it's really helpful. And it just builds upon itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to transition now. I kind of keep this conversation going, but I want to transition to our one big idea section, which is where we're going to dig in a little bit to the nitty gritty details of one kind of aspect of your work. What I want to talk about is, I know that for everything we've talked about, sometimes you work within kind of an unusual setting, which is these kind of quick hit workshops. And I think a lot of people probably hear about all the work we've been discussing and think, oh yes, that's a year, 18-month long engagement. And certainly I'm sure you can work that way with folks, but you also work in these kind of like micro bursts. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that structure looks like. And then I want to dig into what's the philosophy behind that approach?
Yeah. So at Branch, we really made a concerted effort to make these types of strategies bite-sized and understandable for our customers, because it's not legitimate to think that every company can just do a full overhaul. Because a lot of times what we're presenting with that checklist of things that needs to get done and built and then maintained and rolled out, it's a lot of work, right? So a lot of leaders don't know what they don't know when it comes to marketing stuff. And we really want to spend the time with them to say, there is value in creating this checklist of things that your marketing department needs to have its foundational success. And we break that down into individual marketing workshops based on what our clients need, right? So if visual brand not matching your company's mission is something that you're missing, we need to spend a workshop on that. Or if development of the documentation of your products or services don't exist, we want to be there to come in, work on just that project and get you moving forward. So it's like one click forward in the process. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to think about it quite so much as like, oh my God, I have to hire a fractional CMO. Although we do that too, if you
Yeah.
want that. And that's something that somebody wants is a longer term engagement where we can work through a ton of different things and get you looking, your marketing department will look 180 degrees different from how it did the year before. But that's not right for everyone. And I think that being able to bite size these projects really makes for incremental success.
How do you decide what kind of order you're tackling things in? Is it area of greatest need? Are you going more sequentially with them?
We have a preference on sequence, but we will take into consideration the needs of the customer. Like if they know that they're going to be going into the next year and physical trade shows are a big thing, having that visual brand is really going to be an
Mm-hmm.
important thing that they need for coming into the next year. So we take into consideration the things that are already planned and where the business is and their cycle and what their goals are. But we certainly have a checklist that we have a preferred order to go through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then I think what comes up for me is that when you're working in really short bursts, there's inevitably some choices you have to make about what you're what you are working on and what you aren't. How deep you're going versus being like kind of a more shallow, not in a bad way, but just like a lighter touch. Can you talk about how you think about those trade-offs and when a company may need something, be able to kind of comfortably say, like, look, I need the lighter version of this versus the $100,000 consulting engagement on my personas or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's about good goal setting around what is the goal of why we're trying to work on this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it going to get us in the next quarter, in the next 6 months, the next year? Is it going to have impact, and does it play into an overall strategy that we're looking to fulfill? And a leader may not have a really good idea of what that strategy is, but they can work backwards from the goals of the business, right? If it's a 15% increase in top line revenue in the next 2 years, we can work backwards into, okay, well, how many impressions do we need to get across our target markets in order to attain the attention that we need to get the amount of conversions that can turn into customers. So just thinking it systematically down through, I think is really helpful. And then applying effort in these bite-sized workshop style working sessions and agreeing very clearly on if we get through this session and we've worked on this thing, the intended result is X, so that the rubber can
Yeah.
hit the road. It allows us to do this thing. It unlocks the ability to do this next thing that we're looking to do, right? So
And
that's how we approach it.
I think that what I think is kind of implied in what you're saying is that marketing is never done. And that's, I think that can be, I mean, yay us, but
Yeah.
it can be hard to think about, right? You do something like a overhaul of your brand and your website. We branded to Every Little Word several years ago, but then put up a new website, and there's a shelf life on that. Our messaging has already changed, and for 2026, we know that we need a refresh. And so I think to me, the bite size also maybe aligns a little bit better to how long you can kind of expect something to last before it's a little stale and needs fresh eyes on it and needs maybe a refresh, because the market changes. What your customers want might be changing. I mean, think about, customer demand a few years ago relative just AI, everything, and how customers are thinking about products and services now. It's completely different. And I was just having a conversation recently with a biotech startup, and we're looking at updating the website, but we had this conversation about, okay, this is for investors for a fundraise. And so this is the site for now. This is, and we're also working within a certain budget and things like that, but it's to fulfill, as you said, this very specific purpose. And I think in that case, it's so obvious that like eventually if they're commercial, then it's going to be a totally different website. And we kind of have to acknowledge that going forward. And I think that can feel hard because you want, especially if you are not a marketer and you want to think like, I do this and now, oh my God, it's done. Thank you. Like, can this be over with? But I feel like part of that is saying, obviously you want to keep that shelf life have it be as long as it can be, but maybe saying, let's not give it 1,000% and giant budget, because let's do scale back, because somewhere down the road, we're going to have to do it again to stay current.
Yeah, and I think planning for that maintenance is really important around,
Yeah.
at what intervals are you a different company with different goals and different team members? Because when things are created, it's a certain snapshot in time, even with the team that you have in place. And, does the team still believe in that messaging or that brand identity? Is that representative? Or has it aged poorly, right? Because
Yeah.
some colors kind of come in and out of vogue, some ways of speaking do, so having a good look at that and making sure that you're scheduling those maintenance intervals in your marketing. It's it's
Yeah.
kind of a cool way to look at it, but it's and having the bandwidth to do it too. So having a team in place that, that's a part of the goals that are on their 5-year plan, is to say, hey,
Right.
how do we still remain fresh, and make great impressions?
I also think too, there's that inevitable, in addition to that slide of what's going to happen when it's real life. We refreshed our messaging in the spring, and I've gone on a bunch of podcasts and had a lot of opportunities to talk about what we do. And now, after a bunch of reps, it's settling, right? And so is it exactly what's in that document?
Hmm.
Probably not. It's now the version I can live with, and like I can speak out loud and feel comfortable saying. So I think sometimes there's that adjustment period needed too, for like, we have to now live with this, and we don't think it's going to change too much, but it might need a little bit of tweaking based on kind of what's working out there in the field.
Yeah, and human brains are always tinkering and improving, and we always find something
Yeah.
that works. And how do we bring that back? Like, what's that feedback loop to bring that back into our messaging to say, um, you know, this salesperson just had this breakthrough on how to explain something to a customer. Let's get that into our marketing. That's huge. That's proven, tested out there in the field, the success rate that,
Yeah.
how do we bring that back in? So I think that's the evolving part of this that needs to happen. And that's why I think, investing in a team is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, one last question on this to kind of wrap us. We've talked a lot about alignment and the importance of that kind of all the way across the organization. We've also talked about this quick hit strategy of workshops. So, what's the kind of secret sauce to getting alignment quickly?
Um, I think it is different in every organization on whether you just want to bring everybody to the table in a meeting to talk about why we're doing this, but that certainly needs to happen in some way, shape, or form, right? Whether it's, informing people via a big meeting like we talked about, or having their involvement in it, that's ideal, right? Getting their
Yeah.
buy-in, but there's always that like time, and they don't feel like they're working on the thing that is actually their job if they're getting drawn into a lot of marketing things. So feeling out in the organization what the tolerance is for wanting to be involved, I think is really big when moving into helping a customer. For us at least, is like, some people want hands-on from all these different angles, and you got too many cooks in the kitchen. And then
Yeah.
you get the polar opposite, where you have companies who say, marketing, I don't do that, just tell me when it's done, tell me what to do, right? But then you don't get their involvement throughout the whole process, and you may have
Hmm.
some misalignment at rollout, right? So trying to figure out those intervals of check-in and meetings and brainstorming sessions and all of that, I think, is really important. And at some point, you're going to have to rely on the leaders to be good leaders in those companies and make good recommendations for you on who needs to be involved at what point in time.
Yeah.
So I guess my answer to that is rely on the guys that have the information in the leadership team, and just ask the questions about, when do we need to involve engineering? When do we need to involve sales? Who needs to be a final approver on some of the work that we're doing here? And who's going to tell us that we said something wrong, right? Who's the gut check?
Yeah. I find that we're a little bit downstream of this with content, but it's really the same concept. And it's the balance between efficiency and probably impact, right? Like
Mm.
getting as many people as we need to provide input, but not so many that we never get anywhere with the project.
Yeah, or it gets released and then there's just a lot of disagreement about what was said, done, or how things
Yeah.
look. And, if everyone hates the colors that you picked for the jersey, they're not going to really love being on the
Yeah.
team. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, you got to make sure that I'm getting people involved at the right periods.
Oh my gosh, I was watching a football game last night, and let me tell you, I had some strong feelings about the uniforms. It was an alternate, and it was hideous. Um,
I know the one. I was watching this game. Yeah. Maybe one that Aaron Rodgers had to wear.
I was like, are those brown pants?
Brutal. I saw those
Brutal.
too.
Agreed. All right, let's home stretch here. We're going to wrap up with our lightning round segment, which is the last word. Every guest gets the same 5 questions, so just go with your gut on these. Are you
All right.
ready?
I'm ready. Let's do
Okay.
it.
Question 1. What's your favorite word to say out loud?
I find myself saying right on a lot. I moved out to the Pacific Northwest, and it's something that people say out here, and I just really assimilated with it. It's a
Amazing.
good way to kind of just, back and forth with people, acknowledge that you like what they're saying. So I find myself saying right on a lot.
Nice. What's a word you know from reading, but you're afraid to say it out loud because you're not sure how to pronounce it?
Uh, I don't know if it's how to pronounce it or just whether I'm comfortable ever saying it. I was reading a book recently and the author kept using the word disengorged for people leaving a spaceship. And I was like, oh, really? You're going to choose
Oh,
that word for this
oh,
instance? Didn't love that one.
no. What's one phrase or saying you wish could be retired for good, except for your answer to number 2? Because you already gave us
Yeah, we're already canceling that one. Yeah. Um, I don't like the blanks of the world when people say that, like they're using an example of something like the every little words of the world when they're trying to talk about all your
that.
different types of copywriting consultancies. I think that people can be a little bit more direct, and the of the world thing just rubs me wrong. I don't know what it is. People do it, and I'm always like internally dying a little inside.
Nice. Okay, good. What's a communication hill you're willing to die on? Question 4.
Um, if you can't find a way to measure it, even a little bit, you probably shouldn't be doing it. There just needs to be some tie back into the reasons why we're doing something, and that can be for things that we've done forever or things that the business is used to doing. But if you can't measure it, we need to take a hard look at it.
All right. Nice. Tough love there. Question 5. What's the last thing you read, heard, or watched that really stuck with you?
Okay. My wife and I are watching Nobody Wants This. I'm not sure if you've watched this
I
show. It's
haven't,
Oh
but
my God.
yeah, go on.
Okay, so
Go
it's
on.
just into its second season right now, and the writing on that show is just phenomenal. It makes me laugh. It's really relatable to human life, and I think it's just a really refreshing piece of TV content. Yeah.
Nice. That's going to go in my personal queue. I use this question as just my own little recommendation list. So
Nice. It's a good way to develop
excellent.
a hit list. I love it.
Exactly. Exactly. Chris, if our listeners want to learn more about you, what is the best place for them to find you?
We are at branchstrategies.co, and you can find me and the rest of my team also on LinkedIn. We are we try to be decently prolific on there. And yeah, hoping that if anyone wants to take a look at their marketing strategy, maybe even go into a workshop, you take a look at Branch. We'd love to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining today. This was a great conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I had a ton of fun.
That's it for this episode of Expertly Said. We're produced by Every Little Word, a boutique content and communications agency. If you liked what you heard, you know what to do. Subscribe, share the episode with a colleague, or leave us a review. If you want to connect with me directly, please do. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Kristen Sweeney. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.